Utep and Senuti then Ishaka Nugu Kemet. I hope you're doing well. We already have Inspire One in the place to be. I hope you're doing well, brother Elder. I want to check the sound quality. I have 5 seconds. This title is not a shout towards any channel. Microphone check. Oh, channel. Microphone check. 1, 2. Microphone check. Good. Okay, loud and clear. But it's getting a bit annoying to have all those Christian apologists who would not just say up front that that's what they are, you know. And it's not the first time that I have alluded to that. You understand what I'm saying? So I will let you hear it from the horse's mouth, and then I will make my commentary. Let me share the screen. That's going to be something, I'm telling you. Oh boy. All right. Your daughter just returned from Europe. Okay. I hope it was a good experience for her. Now, let me share the screen. This is a live stream entitled The Showdown from the channel called Senator Studio, and I'm at minute 2:03:55, which means it's 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 55 seconds. Let's listen up, everybody.
I gotta get out. Watch this, family. 30 people in the New Testament confirmed. I thought it's a spiritual book. So why are they talking about historical people? Jesus is at the top. Gamaliel the elder. John, and by the way, John the Baptist is considered a real person. James is confirmed. Ananias is there. Cephas, Ananias, Augustus. These are Roman emperors that are in the Bible. Are they spiritual people? They're not real people. They're in the Bible. What happened is the Bible is mixed, ladies and gentlemen, with history and with theology. It's a theological book. Actually, it's kind of more like political, but it has theology in it and it has real history in it. That's the point. So to just throw out the book and say, oh, it's a spiritual book. Really? Based on what? So that means when Kemet people write about the afterlife and talk about different people in different cultures, how should we take it? Should we take it literal or should we say take it as spiritual? How should we take it? Because you seem to be a writing expert, or how we should interpret writings in the ancient Near East. Look at Herod. Is Herod a real guy? Right here. Look at Herod. 4 different Herods, 5 different Herods. Salome, real people. Philip of Tetrach, another Herod. Agrippa, another Agrippa. Over 7 different Herods, real people. Don't sit there and act like there's Pontius Pilate. Is he real? There's a tradition that he was the one that was crucifying people. Another guy is in Josephus that he crucified. A couple other Jewish so-called leaders who people felt were the Messiah. So it wasn't only Jesus that he's thought to have crucified. There's other people. All right, let me stop sharing. Now, with the study of Jesus, and let me just say this to everybody, I would like to know one day, what methodology is Jabari or anyone in the community using to come to a conclusion? Because he claims, again, he don't have no degree in history. He have a degree in African studies. That don't mean you're an expert in ancient Near East history. It's a big difference. You have a degree in African American studies, and I love your African American studies. You're very good at it. Yes, you do. But the point I'm trying to say to everybody is this. If this community is ever going to reach to another level of academic studies, we got to stop lying to ourselves, or stop trying to push the same lies that people before us may have told. Not saying that they're liars. The point is, we have all been taught some way, somehow, by scholarship that doesn't come from our community. I'm saying is, we need to practice a methodology to know if Jesus existed. Let's look at the historical method. Let's have an argument based off the historical method. Let's go through the steps. What does oral tradition say? How long are you able to use oral tradition? Is there an oral tradition of a Jesus existed? Is there an oral tradition of what? That Jesus was killed by Pontius Pilate, that a Jesus existed, that he was hated by the Jews? Is there a tradition of this guy? Is there a tradition of him? And if you look at it, it's there. It's right through Jewish tradition, right through. We know that the Jews ultimately didn't believe him because they had another Messiah in 115 AD during the Kittus War called Andreas. Then they had another Messiah, Simon Bar Kokhba, at 132 AD. So we know that the Jews, the rabbinical Jews, never accepted Jesus as the Messiah. This is why they write about him in the Talmud and mock him. The point I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, in the historical method, this is a simple way. If Jabari says he's a historian and he uses the historical method, what does it teach about oral tradition and 150 years after the event? Do you find that tradition continuously over and over between 33 AD and 183 AD? Yes, we do. We find a continuous tradition with the Clement of Rome. We find it with the Didache. We find it with Barnabas, the Epistle of Barnabas. We find it with Ignatius. We find it with Polycarp. We find it with Athenagoras. We find it with Hegesippus. We find it with did I say Polycarp? Justin Martyr. We find it with Irenaeus. All the continuation of this tradition, as far as oral tradition, the rule in the historical method, that alone tells you that the tradition was carried on. Now, if did Jesus walk on water? Nobody who says he's a historical person agrees with that. Did he resurrect from the dead? Nobody who says he's a historical person says that. Did he perform miracles? No one who says he's a historical person. You have to know how to address it from an academic perspective. Stop the ghetto scholarship. Golfing, Jesus never prove your have a intellectual conversation instead of being emotional. If we're going to look at Jesus, who was a contemporary of Jesus? Paul was, Peter was, James was, Philip was, according to the biblical text. You know what, ladies and gentlemen? Philip, who walked with Jesus, had daughters there's a historical account of his daughters. That's there in the historical record. So they didn't exist because the apostles with Jesus don't exist. So they can't exist. That's how we think. We got to start thinking logically as a historian. Now, did they have stuff in the Bible that's connected to Kemet? Of course, there's stuff that's connected to Kemet. I could prove that with my eyes closed. But did the New Testament steal it? No. And that's what the debate that me and Jabari's having.
All right, Garfield. Jabari, go ahead.
All right. I hope you can hear me. Now we have Chris Harris MVP, who is about to have a debate later on with Pastor Bennett, and he wrote, "Yeah, Garfield is a Christian," and I would think so. It would be easier if Garfield just admitted. It looks to me like, and I wrote that in the chat. I was in the chat when that thing was going on. Sometimes I scroll through videos, or I just open a video that's coming up in my feed, and I happen to arrive at the right time, you know. And I arrived at that moment when Garfield was just talking like that, and I wrote that Garfield once again is being a Christian apologist, and then he will deny it. Somebody in the chat wrote, he first saluted me, and then he wrote, Garfield is not a Christian apologist. And then I wrote, to me, it's like one of the biggest Christian apologists out of the conscious community. I forgot the rest, you know. It would be just easier. But you know what? I'm going to play another excerpt, just another excerpt, and then we can continue. We have Belaya in the place to be, and he's greeting everybody else as well. So then I will go to minute 2:18:07, which means hour 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 7 seconds. Oh, by the way, Garfield quoted Wesley Muhammad, the same Wesley Muhammad who said that milk is liquid sunlight. I repeat, milk is liquid sunlight. Milk is the food of the god. So
You forgot all about that.
3 seconds.
Go ahead, 3 seconds, Jabari.
Did the worshipers of Zeus exist? Did the worshipers of Zeus exist? That's all I'm gonna say. I mean, the worst arguments.
Hey, I'm not trying to sell Kemet through Jesus, so I mean that's irrelevant.
Because
that's
Christians
irrelevant.
exist, that means
That's
that
irrelevant.
Jesus existed? What?
Because it shows a tradition of them worshiping a Jesus,
Did the
which there is a
worshipers
tradition. You have
of Christ
Suetonius, you
exist?
have Nero, you have Tacitus, you have Pliny, and you have archaeological evidence they found in the first century.
I'm
You
done.
have John the Baptist,
I'm
you
done.
have James, the brother of Jesus. You have tons of evidence showing that a Jesus
I'm
existed. You cannot say Jesus existed.
I'm
You
done.
can't.
I'm done.
It's political against what you teach. You can't.
All right, you've heard it. You've heard it. And you know, there was a while back when I addressed Garfield's weak talking points. Once he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Oh, when it comes to Kemet, how come we use the writing of Kemet? But when it comes, oh, we have Brother Chris, Hotep, send feel free."
Hotep, yeah, man, it's getting a little bit weird with Garfield Reed here and this Christian trip he's going on. I mean, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? That's why I think if you played the video from the get-go, you heard me come on there. Come on, like, just come on, man. Just tell everybody you're a Christian. And let's
Oh,
just move forward with this thing.
what was he saying? What was he replying?
Well, I
He,
started,
he, he
if you
did
go
not
back a
just
little
say,
bit
"No, I'm
further,
not a
you'll hear
Christian,"
me.
did he? He
No,
never said
you'll
that to
hear
that.
me. No, he never did. And if you go back and listen, you'll hear me start contending with his scholarship about Paul's letters. And the first thing I asked him was, are there known forgeries of Paul's letters? And he was just like, I never said all of them were real. And I says, good. How can we be sure any of them are real if we have forgeries that exist within the biblical canon? And I said, who would add these forgeries to the biblical canon if they're a known forgery? You understand what I'm saying? And I was like, so like this doesn't make any sense. And just because you have a writing and somebody saying that they knew Paul does not mean Paul existed. And of course, he attacked Egypt and he gaslit me and said I used to be a Christian and all this other stuff. But none of that, all of that was irrelevant to what I was asking him. And it was just a little weird. You know what I'm saying? He even acts like a Christian when he's confronted about some of the things he says, and it was just weird, man. So yeah,
And I'm glad you asked him the question, you know, because he did not say, "No, I'm not a Christian." And it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise that. And you see, the title says "House of Christianness," a title for false flaggers
right,
of the conscious community, and we have false flaggers. And I
yeah,
believe he's a false flagger. And I've
yeah,
said it
man,
before many times, a few times, let's say, that I think he's a Christian. He has a great love for Jesus Christ in his heart, but he's too ashamed, or maybe he's a tactic, you know,
yeah,
why he's not saying it. Maybe
yeah,
he's getting paid. It's possible that he's getting paid. Christians have money. Christians do have money. They can pay people to come here and cause confusion,
yeah,
and he's coming under the guise of scholarship.
yep,
But what he's saying, you know, to me, doesn't sound scholarly at all. I mean, the guy said John the Baptist is considered a real person.
yeah,
The talking point he's making, I don't know if people have noticed, but if you look at him, you can see he's reading from his screen.
that's correct.
So he's doing what Christians do. Oh, we have plenty of evidence for Jesus Christ from the first century. We have Tacitus, we have Flavius Josephus, we have blah, 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 blah. That's what they like to do. We have a lot of people who are contemporaneous to Jesus Christ and stuff like that. And most of the time, all those people wrote after the death of Jesus Christ. That's why I like to say during the lifetime, you know. Then he goes on to talk about the people who say that Jesus existed never said that he did not perform miracles. Then that's not Jesus Christ. That's somebody else. That's a Yeshua. That's a Jesus. That might be a Christos, an anointed one, but that's not Jesus Christ. You know, we need to stop with the BS. We need to start with the BS talking about, oh, well, you know, there's a historical Jesus. He didn't perform all these miracles. The Jesus of the Bible, that's the one who performed the miracle. That's the son of Mary and Joseph. That's the one who was crucified, resurrected. The day that there was an eclipse, earthquake, people got out of the grave, walked, and went and chilled somewhere. Something happened in the temple, the curtain, whatever. All those things happened. Nobody wrote about it. Nobody thought to think, well, let me just write that today there was an earthquake. It was dark everywhere, and that guy resurrected. And later on, actually, he went to the sky after giving a speech to thousands of people.
Nah, how about this? How about all the dead bodies that came up out of the ground?
Yeah, nobody thought about. You know what? I saw some people coming out of their graves, and walking.
Huh.
Nobody deemed it important enough to write about it.
Yeah, that's Night of the Living Dead. What happened to those people?
Yeah, exactly. The night
What
of the
happened to
living
these
dead.
people?
They might have been inspired by that. And I don't mean
Yeah.
to make fun of Christians. I'm talking about a alleged or suspected false flagger, and he's not the only one. I like when people say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hebrew. That's what I'm all about. But when people want to play games like that, and I remember Garfield saying, well, Kemet people, they want to use Kemetic writing, but then we can't use, the Christian writings. When we talk about Kemetic writings, or we're talking about artifacts from the time period.
Right.
So if he's talking about a ruler, during the year of such and such ruler, we have name, dates, and places. It's not books that were written centuries after the facts, or writings decades after the facts. So really, it's good for people to hear that stuff. But the stuff that Garfield just said now, he said it many times before. And he said some weird stuff. I mean, he's mixing the quotes from scholars and quotes from Christian websites, but they're trying to trick people with some talking points. And it's just all over the place.
Yeah, that's what
So, go
the
ahead, brother.
that's what the gentleman's gonna do tonight. He's gonna throw a billion gazillion sources at me. Like I don't know how to deal with that.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you see, the things that we are saying now, a lot of our brothers and sisters don't seem to realize that many people have went through all those texts. They read the Bible front to back. And a lot of Christians themselves found some inconsistencies or things that puzzled them. And they tried to come up with answers for that, you know. But once again, a lot of people like to act like, well, it was so long ago, people didn't read right, people were really illiterate. And no, stop it. We have plenty of writings. And when it comes to Kemet, and I've been showing that for years, we have 2000 BC, 1500 BC. So how in the heck, in the first century, and there's an earthquake, and people get out of their graves and walk. I wonder what their physical condition was. I really wonder how they looked like. I don't know how much time they spent in the grave, buried, but that's what the book says, right? Now, he resurrected Lazarus. He resurrected a girl. He healed the ear of a soldier after it was cut by Peter.
Are we supposed to believe this man floated up into the sky to sit on the right hand of God?
He floated in the sky in front of thousands of people. Nobody wrote about it. An
Or is it
earthquake,
allegory for the sun?
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
an earthquake, an eclipse, people walking out of their graves, and nobody writes about it. I mean, are we serious? And now people want to come with some tricks about, oh, this is actually the historical Jesus. This is not the, you know.
I'm
So
glad you saw it. I'm glad you saw it. I'm
yeah,
glad you saw it.
it's the same old game. And you see, I want to show the picture, brothers and sisters. Listen, because some people don't peep game. See this, brothers and sisters.
That's church leaders right there on top of that white man.
Exactly. If you want to be a Christian apologist, you must as well just go there and be about it to the fullest. And you can be as close to the authorities of your country as is seen on that picture. They got the
Mm.
paper. They got
Yeah.
millions. They got billions.
Yep,
You
yep.
know,
Hey, brother Shaka, I got to get ready for this
I
debate.
understand,
Hey,
brother.
man, I love you, brother. Take care,
Yeah,
Hotep.
Hotep
I'll
said,
continue to watch the show. And I'm gonna stay tuned in while I get ready for this debate. Okay, I got to do a couple of more things. Okay,
I understand, and I know you
peace,
will do
King.
well. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So yeah, our brothers, preparing for his debate. It will probably take place in a few hours from now. It's midnight right now in Europe. So it's probably 6 p.m. now in New York. So that's where you can be. You can be seen or not be seen. You can have the paper. There's enough confusion in the conscious community. People teach that Africans are living a jungle life, that Africans are not civilized, that black means death, that uh, I mean, I could go on down the list. I could go down the list of the confusion that we have. But now, to have some Christian apologists who act like they are not Christians, Blair wrote, archaeology, archaeology proved many times that different places the Bible talked about doesn't exist or never been as it was at the time. I mean, there's so many things that could be said. But now they're trying to pull tricks on us now. There's a mythical Jesus and there's a historical Jesus. What? What? And you've heard Jabari. He basically killed Garfield's argument with the Zeus analogy. Don't we have followers of Zeus? You know, I mean, I could go back, but he asked him some question to that effect. And for those who are curious, you can look at the excerpt that I played, the two excerpts that I played. Look at Brother Reggie's face. I can tell he was a bit embarrassed. When I say embarrassed, I mean uncomfortable. And if you keep on looking, at one point he was like that, like, basically sleeping. But what he and Garfield share in common is a disdain for Jabari and for Kemetic people at large. Under the pretense that some don't know the meta nature too well, but then at one point people become purists. Once you know the meta nature, then you have to know at what point Kemet was used. And then you have to know about the Nagata. Then you have to know about the Meoritic script or any other script before it was called the meta nature. And you have to learn about the culture. So basically, you have to go to school and earn 20 PhDs or do the work of 20 PhDs, and then you can talk about the subject matter. People become purists, you know. But when someone comes online and make these crazy claims, I don't hear anything. And people say the Africans are living a jungle life, the Africans are not civilized. I don't hear anything. But if some people decide to choose Kemet as a way of life, if they don't speak the Meta nature well enough, if they don't know the Meta nature well enough, then it's like it's the end of the world. And you have people in here coming pulling tricks talking about John the Baptist is considered a real person, reading from websites like the pseudo magic Meta nature people do when they're reading from website. And you notice those magic Meta nature people who say that all the scholars are wrong. You notice how they be talking about the Fulanis are Hebrews. They were Hebrews in Kemet. You notice that they are still under the Abrahamic spell. As a matter of fact, dude might still be a Hebrew Israelite to this day. He might still be a Hebrew Israelite to this day. One time that sucker said, "Well, because we have extraordinary claims, then people expect to have extraordinary evidence." It's whack ass talking points. Sorry for the AWS. A lot of time I really force myself not to use profanity, but it's very difficult. I'm telling you, because those dudes are lame as hell, but yet for strange reason they get the respect and support from who? From these Abrahamic believers, because they come in here false flagging, try to flip the script on us. So people should be upfront about what they're all about. We do have some people that I would label Kemetic Muslims or Kemetic Christians. You know, now that channel, the owner might claim he's Kemet all day, like he said many times. As far as I'm concerned, he's an Asiatic black man. He used to be, and he will probably be until whatever. And that's his choice. It's up to, if you listen to the platform, who's on the platform most of the time? Abrahamic believers. That's what makes that little world go around. Of course, every now and then you have some people who are non-Abrahamic, who are Kemetic and of other persuasions, But for the most part, this is an Abrahamic platform. That's where they dwell. That's where they meet. That's where they keep repeating all this stuff from this literature of Asiatics, non-black people. Haven't we established already that these Asiatic people from the Levant, Mesopotamia, Sumer, Canaan, Arabia, haven't we established that those people were not black? So what are we wasting time about? Still, they have it on the lock. Look at this picture carefully. In France, I'm telling you, man, you have some so-called pro-black, black drag queen people who claim to be down for black people. Come to find out after a few years, they were paid by neo-Nazis and skinheads. They were defending rapists and pedophiles. And lately, what did we find out? They were being paid by the police. They were acting as informants, receiving money, cash money, by policemen, by people working for the police. You don't have a clue. You don't have a clue what those people are all about. And one thing they have in common, they usually bang on Kemetic people because they want to keep that status quo. They want to keep that status quo. Not long ago, I showed you a French Pan African. They try to say he's a French Malcolm X. That dumb dude was known being Kemetic, but all the time he was a Muslim. He started in the Nation of Islam. He got kicked out of the Nation of Islam. He told the public that he left the Nation of Islam because he saw the limitation and Islam was not for us. But come to find out later on, he even himself said that when he left the Nation of Islam, it wasn't on his own will, because I found out actually he was kicked out. So he was kicked out. He needed to do something. He used the Kemetic movement because it was strong at the time. Once he got enough people, dude went back to Islam. They do that so many times, man. And now he got the notoriety that he had when he was Kemetic. He made Kemetic people look bad. And lately, there's a video he was making fun of Kemetic people like a dumbass. And you have other people laughing and stuff, not knowing. And I pointed out that they have natural hair, dreadlocks, and all that kind of stuff. And the Nation of Islam teaches that Farrakhan said from his own mouth that natural hair is a disease carrier and a disease catcher. But because Farrakhan said it, and nobody gonna say jack. Now the Sesame Street, what's the other word they use? There's another word they use. Sesame Place. That mascot that ignored the two black girls, rejected those two black girls. It's the end of the world. It's the new trending thing now. And we have Farrakhan on tape talking about the essence of ugliness, our phenotype. We are marked and disfigured. You notice it's the same thing. Those people don't have anything to say about this. I actually had a discussion with Reggie. He was making excuses for the Nation of Islam killing men, women, and children. He was making excuses for the Nation of Islam members killing Malcolm X. He was making excuses for Karenga torturing black women, possibly raping them. But then he was criticizing Jabari. That's a conscious community for you. You can teach that black people are disfigured, that they are marked, that Africans are living a jungle life, that Africans are not civilized. You can make excuses for people who shoot women point blank in the head, shoot children, drown babies. But somebody who doesn't speak Middle Nature enough, then you have a legitimate ground to criticize on a regular basis. Because that's where the problem is. Apparently, that's why we're not going forward. And now we have those Christian apologists who are coming with some talking points that are just so ridiculous, man. So ridiculous, man. I mean, if people really want to go there, and it's funny when I hear also about debate, The debate between Jabari and Garfield was supposed to take place like probably 2 years ago. The COVID came, so there was a halt. But I said it. Garfield was never ready for Jabari. I don't even think he wanted. And what happened with Richard Carrier? Richard Carrier came in and he opened his mouth, was talking slick. Jabari said he's down. Why we don't hear about Richard Carrier? Why? Did Jabari lie when he said that he and his people reached out to Richard Carrier for a debate? Why is it not happening? So if the Christian apologists and non-Christian apologists, anybody who want to talk about history or religion, if you really want to take it there, you know, with those Abrahamic narratives, then you want to talk about historicity, then we will start from the beginning of the book, from the first patriarchs, from whoever they say in their literature that was on the planet Earth, then we will look for the historicity. Now, we don't necessarily need to start with Noah, because they would say, well, you know, they would say it's like thousands of years BC. We can start with Abraham, 2000 BC, roughly, and we can go down the list. From Abraham, we can go down the list all the way to Moses, and then we can go down the list all the way to Jesus. And if you want, we can continue to more recent time. We can do this. And now apparently people want to focus on Jesus. Now, for Christians to say that Jesus existed, is it surprising? Is it surprising? It's not surprising at all. I mean, for all these talking points, those weak talking points, acting like, trying to make a separation with the Jesus Christ as he is described in the Bible and the so-called historical Jesus Christ who was human, who was a human Jesus Christ. I mean, Garfield read some quotes of Jesus doing human things and said, isn't that the human? Like, what? That's the best the conscious community can do now? Abrahamic believers, whether they are Christians, Hebrews, or Jew, Israelites, or Muslims, if someone pushed for the historicity of Jesus Christ, it's just all of them. I'm telling you, it's not a surprise that they bang on Kemetic people so often. They're in love with these Asiatic writings and European writings. That's their agenda. So as long as you push for that, you're good. Those people I told you about who receive money from the government, the French government, the French police, who used to roll with neo-Nazis and skinheads. One of those people said he received $3 million, 3 million euros. That's even more than $3 million. Recently, the euro kind of, went down at the same level of the dollar, but historically, the euro has always been stronger than the dollar. 3 million euros just for a political campaign. So if they receive 3 million euros just for a political campaign, you can imagine how much they get on the low. And the funny thing is that the Nation of Islam received $3 million from Libya. They even wrote about it on their own newspaper, Muhammad Speaks, before it was called The Final Call. So the 3 million euros came from Iran. The $3 million came from Libya. And that was in the 70s, late 70s. And what do we have? We have the tape of Khalid Abdul Muhammad talking about $5 million that he got from Gaddafi on behalf of Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. Those are the things that we know about. Don't you think on the low they received, there was other transactions? Didn't you hear about the $1 billion that Gaddafi wanted to give Farrakhan? And the US government wanted to stop that? Don't you think they had some ways to exchange money somehow, some way? It's not a minor issue. It is serious. So Kemetic people, get on board and don't be fence riders. Don't be fence riders. Some of you want to be Kemetic Christians and Kemetic Muslims. It doesn't really match. You don't see Christian Muslims or Muslim Christians or Muslim Hindus or Hebrew Muslims or Hebrew Christians. You don't see that. So don't think you can just come and mix, the Kemetic teaching or religion with everything just to fit in like that. That's not the way it goes. I know there's many fence riders. We have many transformers in the conscious community. There are people who claim to be Asiatic black men, they claim to be 5%ers and claim to be morals at the same times. The morals who teach that black means death and white means purity, and that Jesus taught in India and Europe, if I'm not mistaken, all over the place. We have Sirius Hirschberger who wrote Egyptians and the Bible were not sub-Saharan, so none of these things have anything to do with you. Now that's really funny. That's really funny, man. I don't know where you're from, Now, apparently, to this guy, being black is being sub-Saharan. Need I say more? Need I say more? Now let me do a little something. Let me do a little something. Those people are so funny, man. First, I'm sharing the link in the chat. That's the Louvre Museum, probably the largest museum in the world, probably the most visited museum in the world. Now, Mr. Smart, Serious, whatever. What does that look like to you? Does that look like a black person to you? Just answer. Just answer. You will not call in. You will not have that courage. You want to talk slick in the comment and make. I mean, you know what? It is what it is, man. My people, that was the chat. But that's why when people call in, I want them to not be anonymous and unidentified because we have too many people, you know. There it is. Listen to this. That is not a sub-Saharan. Dumbass. Forgive me for the AWS. Dummy. Dummy. Serious dummy. My question, you remember that punk so-called linguist? And I asked him, do you have a degree in linguistics? You remember his answer? Well, I studied computer science and we dealt linguistics. Is this what I asked the dude? And those are the same dude who say, oh, those guys have comprehension issues. Serious dummy. What I'm asking you is, does that look like a black person to you? You see the tricks they're coming with nowadays. So black equals sub-Saharan now. I mean, come on now. But it's okay. We're going to get some clarity. Blaya says, don't even answer this fool. But, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. Serious dummy. Why does it take you so long with your Twitter fingers? It didn't take you long to talk foolishness. It didn't take you long to come with that whack answer here. My question to you is, does this look like a black person to you? Listen. That is a dark-skinned person, but not sub-Saharan. Does it look like a black person to you? Serious? Just be serious for a minute. A dark-skinned person. And brothers and sisters, what's funny? Those anonymous, unidentified people, they will tell you that, you see how he's struggling to say this is a black person. For the record, I've shared the link in the chat. This is Amenhotep III. This is Akhenaten's father, one of the most powerful ruler of the empire of Kenet. Blaya wrote another troll fool. It might be that guy who comes up every now and then to talk smart. That guy who claims to be indigenous of America. They will struggle to say this is a black man here on the screen. But they will tell you that Osama bin Laden was melanated. That's the confusion of the so-called conscious community, man. But if you look at the so-called conscious community, like I said, the majority of them are Abrahamic believers. Now listen to what he wrote. There was such thing as a black as black to Egyptians or in those days. But the sentence is not complete, but it's okay. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. So this is what I'm going to do. Just asking you. Does it look like a black person? You cannot answer. Then you're going to bounce. You can go to the Christian apologist and express your love for Christianity and what have you. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so I don't have time for people like that, man. Those people just kill me, man. Those people just kill me, man. They're so smart. They're so clever. They're so sleek. You know, where's the link? They're so sleek. They have answers for everything. And you ask them simple questions they cannot answer. So the title of this video, House of Christianness, a title for false flaggers of the conscious community. I'm telling you, man, if those Christian apologists come up with a channel, oh, he's gone. He's gone. African Science, greetings to you. He's gone. I blocked him. I don't have time for people like that. I mean, that dude has Twitter fingers for days. And you ask him, does it look like a black person to you? He cannot even answer. Why should we waste time with people like that? I gave him a chance, you know. But once again, remember, brothers and sisters, those are the people who tell you that Osama bin Laden was melanated, that Saddam Hussein was melanated. Tuhaka Bey, he said that. I'm telling you, man, they are all over the place. So anyway, if somebody comes up with a channel that says House of Christianness, they will get it popping. They will have millions of subscribers. But their agenda is not to come up front as Christian apologists. Their agenda is to try to come up and act like they want to deal with issues academically, scholarly. But for strange reason, they always bang on Kemetic people. But Kemetic people have writings that they can refer to, that they can quote. And those writings are not only in papyrus, but in many different tools, pottery, objects, boxes, weapons, vases, paintings, carvings on walls, pylons, temples, steles, false doors. It's all over. Should we make a comparison for what writings do we have regarding Christianity during the lifetime of the individuals that we are talking about? Let's do a little reminder now. Let's do a little reminder. We will compare Garfield with such confidence talking about historicity for Jesus and reliability of the writings, the writers of Christianity. And who will we quote? We will quote an expert. All right? It's getting out of hands, man. You have the website address. Scroll to the bottom, and it says, first you have, after the YouTube video, you have Prophet Muhammad's color according to Islamic sources. Because for those who don't know, Wesley Muhammad was claiming that Prophet Muhammad was black, and his family too, and the Arabs of the 7th century. Amusing, but I dealt with it with the Islamic sources, i.e., Ahadith. Yes, Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslims, and others. And for the record, according to Islamic sources, Prophet Muhammad was not brown. He was not even brown. And those people try to tell you that Prophet Muhammad was jet black. That being said, secondly, Christianity, Jesus in the Bible. Now here you have quotes for days. Let me make it larger. We have quotes for days. All right. Now, first one, Bible, we don't have the originals. If you can, put this on full screen mode. This is Bart Ehrman, considered an expert when it comes to Christianity. Now, he wrote, it is one thing to say that the originals were inspired, but the reality is that we don't have the originals. So saying they were inspired doesn't help me much unless I can reconstruct the originals. Moreover, the vast majority of Christians for the entire history of the church have not had access to the originals, making the inspiration something of a moot point. Not only do we not have the originals, we don't have the first copies of the originals. We don't even have copies of the copies of the originals or copies of the copies of the copies of the originals. What we have are copies made later, much later. In most instances, they are copies made many centuries later, and these copies all differ from one another in many thousands of places. As we will see later in this book, these copies differ from one another in so many places that we don't even know how many differences there are. Possibly it is easiest to put it in comparative terms. There are more differences amongst our manuscripts than there are words in the New Testament. And people want to come and put Jeremiah tricks talking about the historicity of so and so. Gospels, they are not eyewitness account. Still the same author, but different book. This time, this is the book called Did Jesus Exist? The first quote was from the book called Misquoted in Jesus, page 10. Now, this is from Did Jesus Exist by Bart D. Ehrman. My point is, in this discussion, in the event, is that the Gospels of the New Testament are not eyewitnesses accounts of the life of Jesus. Neither are the Gospels outside the New Testament, of which we have over 40, either in whole or in fragments. In fact, we do not have any eyewitness report of any kind about Jesus written in his own day. That puts everything that Garfield said out of the window directly to the trash can. Because you heard Garfield talking about, contemporaneous during the lifetime of Jesus. He talked about Paul. Paul was contemporaneous. They love to use that term, contemporaneous. But for those who don't know, one of the biggest tricks of Christians is to use the term contemporaneous as if it meant during the lifetime. But for them, contemporaneous, that might be like 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, 50 years later. That's what they love. Haven't you noticed Christians love to say, when they talk about writings for Jesus, they love to say first century? Haven't you noticed they love to say first century? Sounds good. It doesn't sound too far apart. Garfield said that first century. You need to peep game, brothers and sisters. Now, if you didn't know, Jesus was said to be born, let's say zero. When the Gregorian calendar, we say 2022, that's 2022 years after the supposed birth of Jesus. Now, some people say, well, he was born 5 years earlier, 20 years later. Okay, more or less, we use zero as a point in time, point of reference. So if we presume that Jesus was born in the year zero of our calendar, our Western European calendar, if you have a writing in the year 1995 AD, that's first century. So if you have some writing that's like year 99, which is nearly a century after the birth of Jesus, that's first century. So of course, it's better to say we have first century writing than to say we have some writing 99 years after the birth of Jesus. Now, of course, Jesus probably didn't do much after his birth if he existed. So he died at 33. He started his ministry. I don't know where he went, but you get the point. He probably did something around the year 30 or maybe 32. I don't really know how long he did his ministry. It might have been like not that long, maybe during the last year of his life. But anyway, presuming he did all this thing in his 33rd year, it's more convenient to say we have first century writing about Jesus Christ. We have contemporaneous writing of the first century about Jesus Christ. It sounds better than to say, well, we have writings about Jesus Christ 60 years after his death. It sounds better, doesn't it? Now, people want to talk about historical method. Go ahead. This is an expert talking. Gospels, we don't know who wrote them. From the book Did Jesus Exist by the same author. It's also true that we do not know who wrote the Gospels. Later on, it says, of the 27 books found in the New Testament, only 8 of them almost certainly go back to the authors to whom they are traditionally ascribed. Later on, it says, Jesus' own followers were lower class Aramaic speaking peasants from rural Galilee who were almost certainly illiterate. The Gospels were written by highly educated Greek speaking Christians who lived outside Palestine. They were not Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Then we have another quote. Gospels, we do not have the original text. From the book Did Jesus Exist? And he wrote, the problem is that none of these manuscripts, and you know what, let me share that link. I've just shared a link to this article. So you can throw those quotes at people, just like those Christians apologists go to some websites and they read and they'll try to act smart and clever and sleek. That we have so many evidence that the Kemetic people reject, and the Kemetic people are trying. I'm telling you, man. So the problem is that none of these manuscripts is the original copy produced by the authors. This is true for all 4 Gospels. In fact, for every book of the New Testament. Moreover, most of these manuscripts were made over 1,000 years after the original copies. None of them is close to the time of the originals, within, say, 10 or 20 years. And all of them contain certifiable mistakes. Now, who is the earliest Christian author? Paul. The dude never met Jesus. There were some apostles or disciples. We are told there were 12. But their writings or writings attributed to them are not the earliest. The earliest are those of Paul, the one who had a vision, was traveling, fell down his donkey or ride or horse, whatever it was. But I don't think it was a horse, I think it was a donkey. But anyway, it doesn't matter much, does it? Some people crucify me. It wasn't a horse, it was a donkey. It wasn't a donkey, it was a horse. He fell, had a vision, became blind, recovered his sight, I think. Why are you persecuting me? So there it is. The Apostle Paul is our earliest surviving Christian author of any kind. Of any kind. Many readers of the Bible assume that the Gospels were the first books of the New Testament to be written, since they appear first in the New Testament and discuss the life of Jesus, who obviously started it all. But Paul was writing some years before the Gospels. His first letter, 1 Thessalonians, is usually dated to 49 CE. His last, Romans, to some 12 or 13 years after that. It is commonly said among mythicists that Paul does not speak about the historical man Jesus and has no understanding of the historical man Jesus. This simply is not true, as an examination of his writings shows full well. Apparently, one reason mythicists want to make this claim is precisely that Paul is our earliest available witness, writing within 20 years of the traditional date of Jesus' death. The earliest surviving Christian author of any kind wrote within 20 years of the traditional date of Jesus' death. The dude waited 2 decades after the death of Jesus to start writing about Jesus. And those terms are kind of euphemisms. They just sound better because we have 49 CE. That's practically 50 CE. But that's okay. That's 2 decades. That's 2 decades. So when Paul was writing, there were no gospels. The gospel were written later. So Paul wrote about 2 decades, 20 years after the death of Jesus. And the gospels talking about the life of Jesus were written after that. So people waited for about like 25 years, 30 years to start writing about the life of Jesus. Because obviously when he was alive, Nobody cared to write that the dude multiplied fish and bread and changed the water into wine and resurrected a girl and resurrected Lazarus and was crucified. And the day he died, there was an earthquake and an eclipse, and some people got out of the grave and walked in sight of everybody. And then the dude resurrected, made a speech, and went up in the sky in front of thousands of people. Nobody cared to write about that. That was not important historically. And back then, I guess people were so illiterate, you know. I mean, what thing will ancient people write about? They'll surely not write about somebody that was insignificant back then, but we're talking about someone who was crucified by the authorities of the time, Pontius Pilate. And when he died, there's an eclipse and an earthquake. Has it ever been recorded in the history of humankind of a day when there's an eclipse and an earthquake? Today, we didn't have any light during daytime for quite some time. Let me write about it. Ah, no, doesn't matter. Oh, today there was also an earthquake. Oh, actually, today some people got out of their graves and they started walking. Nah, I ain't gonna write about that. It's not important. Then it's up to your logic. And bear in mind, everybody's free to have their own religion. So good. What I don't like is false flaggers. Dude is a Christian. He's gonna say, I'm a Christian. He ain't gonna try a false flag. You know, he ain't gonna try to be set tripping. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna say what he's all about and we can have a proper discussion. But those people have some hidden agendas, hidden motives, and they are being disingenuous. They are not being honest. They try to pull tricks on us. You know. Now here it talks about the forgery of Flavius Josephus. You know, there's a name for that, Testimonium Flavianum. So this is the forgery. I'm going to deal with that. For the record, we have a Persian king who was described as a Messiah. All right. A Messiah is a Hebrew term that was translated into Greek as Christos, hence why we say Jesus Christ, Jesus Christos. You know, Christ comes from the Greek Christos, for those who didn't know. And here, another quote from Did Jesus Exist? Jesus, no witness record. It is also true, as the mythicists have been quick to point out. Now, you see, it might be academia, but I don't think it's academia. I think it's more Abrahamic believers, particularly Christians, who have coined that term, which is so convenient. It's like saying conspiracy theorist. As long as you say that person is a conspiracy theorist, there's already a negative connotation attached to it. See? So we have a term called mythicist. So it is also true, as the mythicists have been quick to point out, that no Greek or Roman author from the first century mentions Jesus. But he goes on to say, still to press yet further on the issue of evidence we do not have, I need to stress that we do not have a single reference to Jesus by anyone, pagan, Jew, or Christian, who was a contemporary eyewitness who recorded things he said and did. But we heard the Christian apologist, suspected Christian apologist Garfield talking about contemporaneous. You listen to those Christian apologists, you will feel like, you know, you have countless of records that mentions Jesus and by people who are contemporaneous to him. Basically, people who lived during his lifetime. But then again, contemporaneous to them is very, you can stretch it. You can stretch it to almost a century minus 1 year. You can stretch it to 99 years, 60 years, 50 years. So basically, God forbid, like people say, I died tonight in the year 2022. In the year 2070, my children or grandchildren start writing about me and say that I performed all these miracles and did all those great things. What do you think people would say? don't you think they would say, hey, hold up, man. You guys are writing 70 years after, 50 years after he died. What are you talking about? When he was alive, nobody said that. Oh, he wasn't the same at the time back then. He wasn't the same. All right. Then everybody was literate. Nobody was writing about anything. I had a discussion with someone who goes by the name Christian Prince. It was very amusing how that self-proclaimed Christian who wrote the book The Deception of Allah first came on a radio broadcast geared towards black people, try to say, oh yeah, but Islam don't like black people because in the Quran it says, he basically talked about a black slave, um, but the word was slave, and I dealt with that. I made a video. He replied to me. I decided to call on his show. Now the dude is anonymous and unidentified. That's his choice. And when I called, he was very disrespectful. He called me all sorts of, derogatory terms. And he wouldn't call me by my name. And I told him that he is disrespectful, that he doesn't respect black people. So people could listen to that. And they try to flip the script and using that conversation to say that I was an undercover Muslim. And it's online. There's plenty of videos, the same video with different titles, claiming that I'm an undercover Muslim. You know, I mean, that's funny. For people who know me for years, you know, I've been non-Abrahamic for years. But anyway, when I told him that Jesus is not mentioned in the Dead Sea Scroll, it's almost like he was going to have a heart attack or a seizure. So the Gospels are filled with discrepancies and contradictions. That goes without saying, because some people would tell you there's no contradictions in the Bible. Reality of the Gospels. I ain't gonna read that. Jesus checked after Moses. Legend of Christian persecution. Daniel is not the author of the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel claims to be written by a Hebrew man, Daniel, in Babylonian exile around 5050 BCE. In actual fact, as critical scholars have long known, Carrier agrees with that, it was written closer to 160 BCE. And Carrier, that's Richard Carrier, the one who talks smack, the one who labeled Jabari as a, what did he say again? He might have used pagan and some other term. And I don't know Jabari, for the record. I never spoken to him in my life. You know, but he is seen as the um, the top guy amongst the Kemetic people. That's a fact. So a lot of disdain that people have for Kemetic people is targeted at Jabari. Then we have no record of the Passover's custom of releasing a prisoner. No historical record for that. So I would leave it there. I think I've read enough quotes, and I'm sure when I have time to go through Bart Ehrman's other books, and I will have many, many different quotes like that. You know, but the conscious community is just not serious at all. There's no accountability. You have those platforms. People will not even have the decency to be there. They're driving, they go and do the shopping, and that's what you see. Majority of them will never show their face, try to make statements and address important issues affecting the black community, but they don't even have the courage to show their face. And most of the social conscious community, most of the so-called conscious communities like that actually. They are straight up hardcore warriors and freedom fighters for the liberation of black people, but then they don't even have the courage to show their face. You know, so you will have this, talk, 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 and now there's another talking point, to try to say um, why we shouldn't be interested or spend time talking about Kemet is because they say we are West Africans. But like I've said plenty of times, those people barely know anything about West Africa. They might tell you some names of countries from West Africa. They cannot tell you any customs, any tradition from West Africa. Or they might say Yoruba, Ifa, and that's it. They don't practice anything that's West African. They actually don't give a damn at all. They just don't like Kemet. Their culture, so they feel, is Christianity. But they are embarrassed and ashamed to express their love for Jesus Christ, for the Bible, for Christianity. So they act like they are being fair. They act like they are not being biased. But on the low, that's what it is here. Not everybody will be there like that on the picture. And even if it's not Christianity, what is their culture? Ask them. What do you practice? What are you all about? They don't practice anything. Just talk smack online. They just talk smack online and have the nerve to try to belittle real scholars like Sheikh Antadia, for example, because Wikipedia told them so. You know what I'm saying? So we have people who claim to have degrees that they never earned. We have people who will show you fake PhDs with spelling mistakes on it. And we have people who are Christian apologists but won't admit it and talk about historicity of people for which we have never heard about. Like, for example, in France, you have that so-called professor. We never seen his degree. They do claim that he basically presented his thesis. If you present your thesis, it means you have the degree of PhD. Even gave the name of the person who was supposed to be the president of the jury of the thesis. One person contacted that person and said, I never heard of that dude. And that was years ago and was supposed to release a book. And it's the guy who showed a painting, Nubian painting, from a video that was made online. And he told the people this is a description, a portrait, actually, he said, a portrait of Prophet Muhammad from testimonies of the time. And he added that he has some portrait of Prophet Muhammad when he was younger. But the dumb so called conscious community in France, they don't really use the term conscious community. They use the term Pan Africans, the pedophile and rapist lovers and defenders. They uphold that guy as if he's a great scientist. To them, after Shekanta Diop, you have Theophile Benga, and then you have him. And the dude is a clown. And he's been a clown. He even said that Prophet Muhammad he was black and his name was Mamadou. But it's all good. I'm going to stop now. I don't want to sound like a hater. If you believe that the Nubian painting is a portrait of Prophet Muhammad and thus it proves that he was black, because on the painting he is depicted as black, hey, more power to you. More power to you. Congratulations. You have a big community with a lot of money, money from the government, money, money from foreign countries. You can roll on millions. You're good. You're part of the Abrahamic onslaught against Kemet and others. You know. So now, before I close, somebody wants to holler, feel free. And you notice also, you have a lot of people who have a lot to say. They have 20 fingers and they have sugar in mouth. But you notice they don't come here and holler. You notice they don't come here and holler. There are some platforms where you can go and talk a lot of foolishness, but in here, you ain't gonna fly. You know, because the conscious community, I've been telling you, man, conscious community tell you that Osama bin Laden was melanated. Saddam Hussein was melanated. But Amenhotep III, they cannot even say he's a black man. You know, that's not the only depictions. I've been showing depictions of people from Kemet for years. But it's all good. However, we have those people, those pseudos, who want to tell you that Kem doesn't mean black. Some of them said the people of Kemet were not black. So we had all these 200 years of all those writers who talk about this white race living in Africa creating a civilization. They try to deny the blackness of people of ancient Egypt. Then we have Theophile Benga, who assisted Sheikh Anta Diop in 1974. And 50 years later, you have your so-called great scholars with fake degrees or inexistent degrees who now want to tell you, oh, they were not black. Black is a social construct. And if you look at the stock market, if you're in a black, if you're in a white, and people fall for that. So at the end of the day, like I said many times, if people are on some BS, it's their fault. But if you go along with the BS, it's your fault. So who's to blame? Who's to blame? You have lames. They've been lames for years. They've been lame for more than a decade. They try to be slick with people, try to have them believe that they have some degrees. When they are confronted, they don't even want to say, no, I don't have the degree. You ask them, do you have a degree in that field? Instead of saying no, they say, well, I studied this and we dealt with. And they tell you Ra is a volcano. They tell you they tell you Allah is in the Egyptian text. They tell you that Sheikh Anta Diop is wrong. Rikedi Amen is wrong. James P. Allen is wrong. Theophile Benga is wrong. No problem. No accountability. No respect. There's no respect. I mean, the conscious community doesn't even respect scholars just because of their Abrahamic beliefs, damn with all those scholars. And you notice they are quicker to dismiss black scholars, however. I mean, dang. And it's good to be documented for the future generation. You might wonder, well, why are we at this point today? Why are we not going further? Why are we not progressing as a people? Once again, future generation, people will look at these events 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 5 years from now, 50 years from now. Black people in the West, America, Europe, and Africa, because they love to follow what's going on in the West, they teach, say, believe, and defend that Africans are living a jungle life, that Africans are not civilized, that black means death, and white means purity. And they're banging on Kemetic people, they're banging on people who follow the ways of traditional Africans who built a great empire, people that we can say we owe alphabet to. The alphabet derived from the Mother Nature, and not what they say, oh, it's a dead language. I read in the comments some lady who wrote, Romans gave you Egyptology. And a lot of Abrahamic believers like to say, particularly Hebrew Israelites, like to say, a white man gave you Egyptology. Did the white man write the Mother Nature that we have all over these different areas in the world? There are some talking points that just don't make no sense, but they have some people, and there's strength in numbers. You heard about this guy, this ICIU, whatever. Snoop Dogg had a music video, and he showed them for a few seconds because they like to do demonstration and walk on the street. They wear pink most of the time, or purple actually, not pink, purple. And because they're so numerous in the street, and people love that. Like the NFAC, when the NFAC came up, there's a gullible black, whoa, NFAC, not effing wrong. Turned out the dude a few years earlier ran for the presidency of the United States of America. And then he even wrote on his own platform that he was considering running for the presidency of the United States of America. And 2 years later or 3 years later, dude becomes a hardcore, straight up militant dude. That's how gullible they are now, but it's thanks to social media. So anyway, those Hebrew Israelites, they have a big presence online. They have many chapters. Doesn't mean that they necessarily have buildings and places of meeting, but they have different channels, different places in America, in the Caribbeans, and in Europe as well. They're doing their thing. Now, Kemetic people, what do we have? What do we have? We have those Asiatic Black Men platform where people celebrate the death of Africans and teach you that Africans are living a longer jungle life and that Africans are not civilized. And that's where we are. That's where our presence is. How many Kemetic people know the Medu nature? Extremely few. People like to take on Kemetic names and claim to be Kemetic. As a matter of fact, many Moorish people, many have Kemetic names, and at the end they will have El or Bay. Many Moorish people have been false flagging for the longest, man. Malachi York was a Moorish guy. The Nubians, they are Moorish. A lot of people like to act like, oh, Nubians are Kemetic, and and they try to, make a correlation between the pedophilia case against Dr. York and Kemetic people. But look up the full title: The United Nubian Nation of Moors. I have plenty of depictions, pictures, videos of Malachi York and the Nubians with fezzes on. They were dealing with the sovereignty thing. Even with the case, he tried to say that he was a diplomat from such country and all that. So other people, they build their platform, and it's not just online platform. They make their paper. They have their philosophy, their doctrine, their rules, their way of life. Kemetic people will have basically false flaggers. We have false flaggers, false flaggers for days. And lately, we have Kemetic people who tell you that Kem doesn't mean black, and the ancient Egyptians were not black. That's the end of the world. I mean, the so-called conscious community, has it ever been so lame? Now, there's a dude called Chief X. He made a video, and the title says F Dr. Ben. The French Pan Africans, there's a lady who used to be a Pan African. She burned the Pan African flag, the red, black, and green flag, then said Jack. Chief X said F Dr. Ben. You notice people aren't saying Jack. I'm not saying that every time someone says something, they should address it, but it doesn't hurt. Now, before he said, F Kemet and Hotep word and stuff like that, but now he went as far as saying that. Where are the defenders of Dr. Ben? Where are they? Every time people talk smack about Kemetic people and Kemet, every time people diss Kemetians or Kemetic people, I don't even see much response, not even in comments, you know? So if there are some people who consider themselves Kemetic, you need to step your game up. Because even if you want to remain for the rest of your life anonymous and unidentified, so be it. But you can participate even online with typing messages, comments, and express your thought and give support and click on the thumbs up, because Christians, Muslims, and other Abrahamic Hebrew Israelites, other Abrahamics or non-Abrahamics, that's what they do. They show support or they participate somehow, some way. And it doesn't cost $1. It doesn't take hours to just click on the button. But many, if not most, of the people who claim to be Kemetic are not Kemetic. They don't care. It's just something to sound good and look good. And every now and then, you have some people who are these Kemetic people, and those people, they go along the wind. The wind goes one way, they go one way. That's a fashion, that's a trend. They're not really claim to be Kemetic that much. They'll come with some talking points about, oh, well, at the end of the day, yeah, we are from West Africa. And one thing they love to say also, oh, you guys say we come from Egypt, we don't come from Egypt. Most Kemetic people don't say we come from Egypt, but it's not good because you can see how biased they are. They never say, well, you Hebrews are lights, you don't come from Israel, you don't come from Canaan. They don't say that. They don't go to the black Muslims and say, oh, we don't come from Arabia. But amazingly, when it comes to Kemet, oh, yeah, we don't come from Kemet, we don't come from ancient Egypt. The same things they don't say to the black Christians, black Muslims, black Jew, Israelites. We hear them all. All those weak talking points. We hear them all. We hear some crazy things, man. So the display of Garfield, I was really disappointed. That was really disappointing. Some people don't know how to let go of whack talking points. That was embarrassing, man. Now, I suggest you go and ask Reggie what he thought of Garfield's um, speech or breakdown. Just asking honestly, what do you think? Yeah, you've been saying a lot of things about Jabari. What do you have to say about what Garfield was saying? I mean, dang, dang. I don't want to act like I'm holier than thou. I know my limits. When something's not my lane, like DNA and all that, I don't deal with that. That's not my lane. I don't know it all, but dang, people talk about methodology and methods. For real? We are followers of Zeus. Yes, we do. I'm telling you, man. The old trick of, well, we have historical people mentioned in the Bible. So, Spider-Man and Superman, don't they mention historical people? So, I like when someone is a Muslim and he says he is upfront instead of false flagging. I like when someone is a Christian and he says upfront instead of false flagging. I like when someone is a Jew, Hebrew, Israelite, Jewish, Hebrew, and he says it upfront. You know, but amongst the so-called black conscious community, we have people who are fence riders. They are all over the place. They don't want to say what they are really. Why is it now? I haven't heard the exchange, but Chris said that he asked Garfield. Why is it that Garfield did not say that he's not a Christian? Why is it that he did not say outright, no, I'm not a Christian? He probably is, and he has the right to be. But why wouldn't he say upfront that he is? Why all these little games? Is he being paid? He paid Richard Carrier. He admitted that. And I'm sure he didn't pay Richard Carrier only, you know. And once again, you notice the people they paid, they were white people, but it's all good. That's black power, isn't it? Yeah, that's the black conscious community. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about black people. We want to uplift black people. But who do we pay? We pay white people. Oh man, I'm telling you, it's just all over the place. All over the place. The people who control this narrative of the so-called black conscious community, they are Abrahamic believers. They have the game on lock. Just like in France, it's the pedophile and rapist friendly Pan-Africans paid by the French government, by the French police themselves. Many of them have raped women, so they have criminal records, and they are held by the you know what. You know, you cannot never go back. Some people made some mistakes in their lives. Some people paid the price in terms of um, legal matters, prison, fines. Others didn't pay the price. But amongst the so-called conscious community, it's like, even if you rape, if you talk about black people, it's all good. So we need to determine what is the time period, what is the expiration date. How long will someone be considered unfit to deal with black issues? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 50 years? Like I said before, there's that guy in France, and he's still talking about black folks. The scandal came out that the dude raped multiple times. His criminal record came out. The dude filed a complaint against a black media that talked about this. And who talked about this first? Some white media or white press. He didn't file a complaint against them. Where did he get the money to file a complaint against those black media? And I'm telling you, there was a post on Facebook. There's a website allegedly for black people. Another website that's some flunky of the Asiatic black men and rapists and pedophile, but it's all good. First, they wrote an article talking about this. And someone said, how dare you attack a brother? So he quoted that, how dare you attack a brother? And said, oh, yeah, you're right. We're not judges. We're removing it. That caused a backlash. Like, how the hell you remove it? The dude's raped, has raped, there's a criminal record, and now you remove it and then backpedaled. Some people are like that. They don't have any direction. They just go with the wind. They just go with the trend. Oh well, more people say this, more people say that. Oh, we need to be inclusive of this. We need to be inclusive of that. So they put the article again. And I'm telling you, man, I went through the comments on Facebook. All the people, oh yeah, he raped. That was a long time ago. He's fighting for the people. For a lot of people, it's all good. And many, of course, are anonymous there when they give the comments. Many were not anonymous. You could see their face. You could go on their profile. You could see their real people, with their family members and, at work, in the street, chilling and stuff like that. Many people feel like it's all good if you rape. Many people feel that way. As a matter of fact, we have the GMS people. We don't really hear about them anymore. I mean, all of them had a certain age, but years back, we saw them saying that some of them said that rape is all good, making excuses for that. Talking about, having sex with 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and stuff like that, 14-year-olds, stuff like that. Like it's all good. That's the conscious community. So, and you have some people after that scandal came out of the dude being a rapist, they roll with the dude for more than a year. And after a year, they go like, well, I told him to write an open letter to say, yeah, you waited a year. Yeah, right. Those people, many of them, they get paid. Some of them appear all of a sudden. They come out of nowhere. We don't really know their background. But a lot of people are gullible. I'm telling you, anybody, they know that. The powers that be, they know that. If they want to push something, Black Lives Matter, what happened? Mass movements. You can take any group of people and you give a name for their movement and you show a crowd, and that's it. It's done. It's done. They are in the game. They are established. Like Black Lives Matter, they collected a lot of money. Millions, millions, millions. What did they do with it? They bought themselves some houses. Millions, millions and millions and millions. And people are crying now. Now there's a guy, I will not say his name, I will be kind. It's been many years I was supposed to be at a school. School is not done, but we have some gullible people who are still looking for excuses. I remember a sister I spoke to when that stuff started, when this hoax started, and I told her about people who have doubts about it. And she went, "How many schools have they built?" Well, the dude never built one school, no class yet. It's been years. All it takes now is for you to announce something, and it's as if you are doing it or you have done it. Gullible as hell. I mean, we have to keep it real. Isn't it true? Today, you see how some people who make excuses as to why the school has not opened yet, and they're still sending money and supporting. And years later, I guess they're going to say, well, it was the powers that be that you don't want him to have the school. And I'm going to talk about the conscious stripper trying to put all that hate against her. Oh, NBA dude was supposed to give me millions of dollars, but he backed down when he saw the scandal. Yeah, right. We believe you. We believe you. And this guy is also of the Asiatic persuasion as well, because he has kind of removed the Abdullah from his name, but it's the same crew really, pushing us back. They always receive money, millions of dollars, and we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. So keep going, conscious community. You're doing very well. You have anti-black and anti-African teachings. You invite people who publicly state that they celebrate the death of Africans, and that's consciousness. But then people are going to diss Dr. Ben. They're going to diss Dr. Clark. For those who don't know, you have Professor Griff, who dissed Dr. Clark after his death, well after his death. How courageous. How courageous. You let anything go. You just allow anything to go by. But the reality, most of the conscious community don't really have much respect for the African way or the African tradition. It's a reality. Otherwise, you would have never accepted or made excuses for people who teach that black means death, that Africans are living the jungle life, and that Africans are not civilized. You know? The French Pan-Africans, they accept those teachings, and some Africans accept those teachings, but many Africans don't know about those teachings. And if you tell them, they will start making excuses. If you tell them, they will start making excuses. If you know the amount of people who are following some of the so-called conscious people, and I told them, you know, they teach the Africans are living, they're like, oh, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. How dumb does that sound? And those are the free thinkers. Those are the free thinkers. Those are the um, critical thinkers. Those are the intellectuals. That's the future of the black community. That's the future of the African way. So you have all those social media, all those websites, all those YouTube page, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all those pages. Ask them, how do you feel about people who teach Africans are living in jungle life? Ask them the question. Ask them, how do you feel? Do you support it or not? Just ask them. You have some media in America. I don't need to say names. They invite those people who are part of the organization that teach Africans how to live in the jungle life. It flies. It's all good. They don't care. And the worst to me is people of African descent who still make excuses for that. You will never see people who are pro-Chinese with teachings that says that Chinese people are living a jungle life. I mean, when I went against those anti-black and anti-African teaching, or let's say when I did not accept it, I was dissed and disrespected by so-called pro-black people who used to greet by saying Black African power. And that was like 10 years ago. And now recently, when I listen to the crew, the people around them, it seems like they're back at dissing Africans or dissing Kemetic people, but they are being very silent about anti-black and anti-African teaching. So it's like, starts all over again. It's like history repeating itself. They want to make fun. They want to diminish. They want to disrespect people who study ancient language, ancient culture. Well, they cannot tell you anything about culture. Insisting we're from West Africa, and yet they're silent about people who teach Africans how to live in the jungle life. Does that even make sense to you? That's for the future generation, man. Those people had their run. What they did was just kiss behinds, lick boots, and that's about it. That's about it, man. I remember Omar Johnson with that meme. Don't hold at me all day. What? And don't forget, a while back, Hotep N word. That's the number one term used as a negative. That's what they have successfully done. And remember that Tariq Nasheed, one of the main guy who came up with that negative term, Hotep N word. Remember. And now what is it about? That FBA calling African status and all kind of negative stuff. You have so many audio excerpts of him talking smack about people from anywhere except but America. And the people who follow him haven't realized that this dude is not about anything at all. And he said it himself many times. No, 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 no organization. No, no, that's not what we should do. So he's talking about reparations. He's talking about the museums. He got the money. I don't see any museum. And he will always have talking points. But it's not about any organization. It's not about anything at all. Just some talking points. Using something that will have people have a sense of belonging. Foundational Black Americans. All right. I see. All right. If you feel that way, okay. Why dissing African people all the time? Why dissing Caribbean people all the time? Where was Marcus Garvey from? He was from Jamaica. Did you know that, brothers and sisters? Did you know that he was from Jamaica? You might as well go and ask Tariq Nasheed what he feels, what he thinks about Marcus Garvey. I'm sure he will find some negative to say. Oh man. But those guys are established. If you talk about them, guess what they will say? You are a hater. Hey, it's all good. So, as usual, the Twitter fingers, the fake linguists, and their groupies, the Asiatic black man, who have supreme wisdom, the Moorish science temple people who have all that knowledge, that Moorish science. They are the custodians of the Egyptian wisdom or whatever. There's black Christians, black Hebrews, Israelites, black Jews, Muslims, stuff like that. Atheists or not, all those people like to try to, this check on tidy up and all that. Because at the end of the day, it's sad to say, but if it's an American PhD, black American PhD, they will have more respect than someone who has a black African PhD or black French PhD, you know. And it's just sad. It's a reality, man. Some people are just really tribalist, It's very tribalistic. I haven't forgotten people used to diss me for my geographic location. But as usual, as you can see, they are not here. If I allow people to come on a platform with some avatar like that, there'll be many people. There'll be many people, but there's no accountability like that, you know. So we'll see in a few years where all that gets you. You know what I'm saying? We will see. But don't act like you didn't know, brothers and sisters. Just don't act like you didn't know. Those people, they know very well what they're doing. Sometimes, with this anti-black and anti-African teaching, we go, oh, back in the days, what I'm saying, in the 30s, in the 60s, people, man, we're in 2022. Stop making excuses for it, man. You know, stop making excuses. That's lame as hell. That's lame as hell. And people basically deny reality now. They deny reality now. Some books going to be released like it's damn near say that they know I didn't have anything to do with the Malcolm X killing. I don't know what they're trying to say now. Difficulty is that Farrakhan himself said that members of the Nation of Islam were involved in the assassination of Malcolm X. So it's a bit difficult, to go all the way. Just like we have Farrakhan saying that Prophet Muhammad was white. Just like we had Elijah Muhammad saying that Prophet Muhammad was white. So whoever is a member of that organization and write books talking about Prophet Muhammad was jet black, then he is contradicting Elijah Muhammad, the founder or leader of the Nation of Islam. But guess what the dude came up with? Well, we don't know what he meant. You don't know what he meant. I don't know what he meant. He said that on tape. There's something called literary intent. What did he mean by that? Elijah Muhammad spoke English. He said Prophet Muhammad, the Muhammad that was here 1400 years ago, was a white man. He meant white like we mean white. Stop with the BS. Stop with the BS. But some people love the BS. Their point is not to make sense. Their point is not to be logical. Their point is just to win some argument and make some talking points for their cause. And they have noticed that they have gullible, impressionable followers. So they go all the way. They go all the way. And you have noticed recently, a while back, they were doing acrobatics with those Arabic terms. Because most people, black people in America were Abrahamic believers. Most of them don't know the Arabic language, they don't know the Arabic terms. So you just go blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh my God, he shouldn't prove that Prophet Muhammad was black. We have academia for all these years, nobody pointed that out. Nobody pointed that. And that has been smashed. And there's a French dude who was also a fluent Arabic speaker. It's been a year, he haven't uploaded on this channel. Yeah, stuff like that, the fashion trend that comes up, then it dies out. It dies out, But when it comes to Kemet, hey, we find new records and new records and new artifacts and new artifacts and new artifacts. And the whole world of academia, people who deal with history, they are in awe. The experts, the specialists, the scholars, the PhDs. But who's this in that? Who's this in that? The Be Made Conscious community. Some punks who can't even show their face, who just get a kick out of dissing Kemetic people. But won't say a single word about people who teach that Africans are living a jungle life. All right. So that's my stance. If you claim to be Kemetic, learn the mental nature. I'm not saying you have to know the hundreds of glyphs, but have some minimal knowledge because it gets embarrassing at some point. At some point it really gets embarrassing. You know what I'm saying? Don't allow people to diss your culture or way of life. Don't associate yourself with people who don't respect your culture or way of life. And support the knowledge. Share the knowledge. Defend the knowledge. Apply the knowledge. Support the knowledge. You understand what I'm saying? It shouldn't just be talk. Those Christians, they support those Christian channels. Those Muslims support those Muslim channels. Those Hebrew Muslims, those Hebrew Israelites support those Hebrew Israelite channels. But the Kemetic people, what are they doing? Who's Kemetic? How many Kemetic people do we have? There was a time when many people claimed to be Kemetic, and when those people started dissing, saying Hotep N-word, they were no longer Kemetic. So all it takes is enough people to diss your culture or your way of life, and that's it. You're no longer that. That's being weak. See, most Christians and Muslims, they don't even need to be die hard. But if anything happens, a nuclear or natural catastrophe, and they become a minority, best believe many of them, they will stand their ground and say, that's my belief, that's my religion. I stick to it, I stand by it. But the so-called Kemetic people, when it's fashionable, they are Kemetic. When for those Abrahamic believers and false flaggers, these Kemetic people, well, we have too many people with these Kemetic people. I'm no longer Kemetic. I'm West African. Okay, what's your culture? What do you practice? I'm West African. What do you practice? All right, well, keep going like that then. We'll see where that gets you. Stay safe, stay healthy. If I'm allowed to, by the nature, I will definitely holler back at you, Hotep.
Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I'm giving Medu Nature classes. And here, that's the flyer. Okay? So, those who are interested, feel free to holler at me. If you're not interested, it's cool. But I recommend that everybody who has not yet seen the video, Kemet and Ma'at, Before Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then watch it. It has about 300,000 views and really deserves to have a lot more.
I just want to let everyone know who's listening in now and who's going to listen to this stream in the future. I just had my first Meta Nature class by Brother Shaka today, and I've had other Meta Nature lessons by other teachers, and I can tell you right now, the brother is the best in the game. He is that was one of the best classes I've ever had ever. So if you're interested in learning the Meta Nature, if you're interested in getting the basics of it, Brother Shaka is an awesome teacher. Get with him, and it's extremely affordable. This brother is giving us his time and his skills, and he's basically giving it away. I mean, I just consider it a donation. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody is interested in learning the Meta Nature, get with this brother right here. He's an awesome, awesome, awesome teacher. And I'll end with that.
Hotep Senu, Hena Senut. This is Julie, also known as Servant of Yah, and I'm currently taking the Medu Neture classes with Brother Shaka, and it has been an amazing experience. Only 2 lessons so far, and I feel like I've been taking the classes for months, just with the how in depth he goes into the vocabulary words, the construction of the language, the grammar. It's been immeasurable, the experience. And one thing that comes across, hands down, is his extreme passion for teaching this to anyone who is willing to learn and has an interest in learning. So I highly suggest, if you are interested, even a minimal interest, that you subscribe to the classes with Brother Shaka. It's such a nominal amount for how much you get. I know, like, our last class was over 2.5 hours. It felt like 2 minutes, but because that's how involved you are in what he's teaching and how he teaches and how compassionate he is about what he teaches. Also with sharing materials free of charge. No question, no doubt. It's just what he does. He doesn't have to, but he does. And so I just wanted to give a short testimonial about the class and the effectiveness of the class. And all of that is attested to how studied Brother Shaka is. So I highly recommend anyone with a minimal interest that you do sign up for the Medu Netia class. Hotep.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which is Ma'at Forever. Don't forget to watch the video entitled Kemet and Ma'at. Don't forget to share Kemet and Ma'at on my channel on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or other social media that you use. Email, text messages, you name it. Those who wish to donate can do so on paypal.me/Ma'at Forever.